There's a sentence that sounds perfectly responsible, mature even. I'll start investing next year, when I'm more stable. It feels like the wise thing to say, like you're being careful, like you're waiting until the time is right. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That sentence, repeated year after year, might quietly cost you more than your car, your student loans, and your rent combined. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing nothing, and time doesn't wait. Let's look at two people with nearly identical lives. Emma is 25. She lives in Chicago, works in HR, and earns $58,000 a year. After taxes, she takes home around $3,800 a month. Her expenses look like this: rent with a roommate, $1,100, car payment, $340, student loans, $290, insurance, phone, utilities, $280, food, social, lifestyle, $650, subscriptions and MISC, $200. That leaves Emma with roughly $940 at the end of each month. She knows she should invest. She's read about index funds, she's heard about retirement accounts, but every month she thinks the same thing. I'll start once I have a better cushion, maybe next year. So she puts $400 into a savings account earning almost nothing. The rest disappears into small purchases she won't remember by February. Now let's look at her coworker James. Same age, same income, almost the same expenses. But James made one different decision at 25. He started putting $300 a month into a simple index fund. He didn't wait until he understood everything. He didn't wait until he had no debt. He just started. That single decision will change everything. The mistake here isn't laziness. It's not even a lack of knowledge. It's that human brains are terrible at understanding exponential growth. We think in straight lines. If I save $300 a month for 30 years, that's $108,000. But that's not how investing works. At a 7% annual average return, which is a historically reasonable estimate for broad market index funds, that same $300 a month becomes roughly $340,000 by the time you're 55. That's not magic. That's time doing what time does when you let it work. But here's the part no one wants to hear. If Emma waits just 5 years, starting at 30 instead of 25, she would need to invest nearly $500 a month to reach the same result. 5 years of delay doesn't cost her 5 years of progress. It costs her over $100,000 in potential growth. Let's slow this down. If James invests $300 a month starting at age 25 and stops at 55, total contributed $108,000. Estimated portfolio value at 7% return, roughly $340,000. If Emma starts the same $300 a month at age 30 and stops at 55, total contributed $90,000. Estimated portfolio, $220,000. That 5-year delay cost Emma $120,000 in growth, even though she only contributed $18,000 less. The money you invest early has decades to compound. The money you invest later simply runs out of time. This isn't about being rich. It's not about stock picking or crypto or side hustles. It's just math, and the math is brutally honest about what waiting really costs. So if this is simple math, why do so many smart people delay? Because next year feels close. It feels like you're not really saying no, you're just saying not yet. And there's always a reason. I need to pay off debt first. I don't have enough to make a difference. I want to learn more before I make any mistakes. These sound logical, but they're often just comfortable excuses dressed up as responsibility. The truth is, most people don't delay because they're being careful. They delay because starting feels uncertain and doing nothing feels safe. But doing nothing has a cost. You just don't see the invoice until decades later.
Here's what this really means. If you're 28 and you keep saying next year until you're 35, you haven't just lost 7 years. You've lost the most powerful 7 years your money will ever have. Because early dollars have more time to double and then double again. A dollar invested at 25 could become $7 by the time you're 55. That same dollar invested at 35 might only become $4. The gap doesn't shrink, it grows. People who build real wealth over time don't wait for the perfect moment. They understand that the perfect moment was yesterday, and the second best moment is today. They invest small amounts consistently, not because it feels exciting, but because they've done the math. They don't try to time the market, they just stay in it. And they know that starting messy, even with $50 a month, beats waiting for clarity that never comes. This isn't about making you feel behind. If you haven't started yet, that's okay. Most people haven't. But the question is simple. How many more years are you going to let next year win? You don't need to be rich to invest. You just need to stop waiting for a version of your life that feels ready, because that version might never arrive. If this helped you think differently about time and money, consider leaving a like. And if you want more videos like this, honest, no hype, just clarity, subscribe. Thanks for watching.